All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome at our core protocol sync. We'll give exciting updates about protocol from last week and plans for the nearest future. And Lucian, do you want to be next? The first one today?
Sure. So before I would like to share this link, there are a few questions I wrote in the Notion. And please let me share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, sure, great. So last week, the primary thing is to implementing this one trusted executor, producing the execution receipts. Okay. The core idea is we track this trusted executor in parallel executor, and we use a typo, which is this stable executor identification identity and the signing key for this executor, as you can set a new key in the future. This signing key is not stable. Okay, we track this. We track this trusted executor in this palette, and whenever we want to produce execution receipt, we'll fetch the expected executor from the runtime, from the primary runtime. Okay, and we check if the local key store has the signing key of this expected executor, and if everything is fine, you have this key and you're running in the authority mode, then you try to sign the execution receipt hash for now. After that, we wrap it in signed execution receipt, and we gossip this signed receipt over the executor's network. Okay, once the other executors receives these signed receipts, these signed execution receipts. Okay, we will try to verify the signature and verify if the author of these execution receipts is expected or not. If not, we would like to report this unexpected execution receipt author. Okay, we'll talk about when we look at this Notion page. Okay, so this is one thing, the verification on the farmers. There is also another thing that is to verify the executor signature about these execution receipts on the farmer side. Okay. Okay. I think that's everything I want to discuss regarding this PR. And the more questions, I actually wrote them in here. So about this PR, any comments, questions? Otherwise, we'll just take care of those questions.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. This is awesome. Thank you, Li Cheng. Really excited to see this milestone achieved. Just for everybody's awareness, we are going to start with, so there is no execution on Subspace right now, or no decoupled execution on Subspace. Everything is coupled under the farmers on our farmnet. This is a huge milestone to be able to have decoupled execution. However, it is not as presented in the white paper, where we have some stake-weighted election. This is just one executor, similar to like the sequencer in Optimism, where we have one trusted node, or it's trusted is probably not the proper word because it is verifiable. It is verified, and there's fraud proofs and all that. We haven't tested all that out fully yet, at least on a live network. But we don't. But it's closed participation. So there's just one single executor, which the network has to know about, and we will run that single executor to start. And then as another milestone, hopefully in the next few months, we will introduce stake-weighted elections, and then we will allow the community to participate in execution as well with some testnet tokens that they have. Is that clear to everybody? Are there any questions about kind of what this means, where we're at right now in this implementation? Okay, awesome. All right, Li Chang, I'm sure you know what my next question is. When can we deploy it? When will it be ready to go out on our testnet?
You know, that's like it's also related to my questions here.
Okay.
Okay.
So if there's unexpected behavior, like we'll deal with it, I guess, is like unless there's anything, like there are a million edge cases right now. There's like several attacks that we can do. I don't want us to have to cover every single edge case before we deploy this.
Yes. I just want to let you know if that is acceptable for now. If we don't care of it right now. Okay, so that's the question.
Well, let's go through them. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, great. So one thing is to report this execution resist equivocation, someone unexpected signed the execution resist and published to the network. Okay, so we need to report this equivocation. I think it's related. It's more of the security stuff. I think it's it's fine if we differentiate to the future. We don't have to implement this part for now. Okay.
Well, there's two cases there based on the way I heard the question. So one would be somebody who's not an executor proposes an execution receipt, and then the other would be somebody who is an executor, or the one trusted executor that we have produces two different execution receipts, which is equivocation. So in the case of equivocation, that is not something we're going to handle at this stage of the implementation. So that's going to be a next step, but that's not going to block deploying this. But if I understood the way that it's designed right now, or the current state, since we have verification, if somebody submits an invalid execution receipt, that should not even make it into the transaction pool or the extrinsic pool, right? That should just get ignored and not rebroadcast. It shouldn't get sent across the network, right?
It depends on where we validate it, I guess.
This signed execution receipts, if the executors found it it's kind of invalid, it will be simply dropped right now.
Okay, so then I think we're okay for now on number one. That's a next step, and that's actually what I was asking for you to set up the meeting with me and Nizar and Sam to go through these next steps in more detail, so we could discuss the specific security. There's a whole host of these security implications that we need to kind of review, prioritize, and cleanse, because some of them actually don't apply anymore based on some things we've learned.
Yeah. Okay. So there's also things related to this problem is that, do we want to block the peer that sent these invalid execution receipts on the networking layer?
I think that's one of those security discussions we need to have outside this call.
Okay.
But that's a great point to raise.
Okay. Then let's move to next question.
But not at this stage right now. At least we don't need to block the peer.
Okay. So the next question is like how we verify the execution receipt like is correctly signed by the expected author on the farmer side. I
Well,
think it's also fine to ignore for now, I believe.
actually, no. Like this is to the comment that I had in the pull request where I said that farmers execution receipt needs to be signed both on the executor side and on the farmer side. Otherwise, farmer has no idea who produced that ER, which like defeats all of the other protections against like incorrect
first
execution
thing,
and another thing.
Yeah. So the first thing is like if we have to like take care of this problem right now, or we can like take care of it later. The second thing is in which way we are going to like use for this problem. Like so the first thing, do we have to take care of this right now in the like initial version? Remember?
So what happens right now when a farmer receives an execution receipt?
Actually, nothing. The farmers does nothing about this execution receipt.
It just accepts it.
Actually, it doesn't even to like accept it. It's just the image and event like pretending you like process this execution receipt. Actually, it just did nothing about this execution receipt.
But it should include in the block, right?
Yes, I think yes.
Okay, so it's in the block. It's gossiped over the network. It saw the transactions.
It's just not verified, I guess.
Things we are not, we haven't verified this receipt, so
right. So anyone can submit any ER for anything and just flood the network with those ERs because nothing is verified. So we do need at least to verify that it is signed by correct executor in this like initial version.
Okay, so we have the answer for the first. The next one is like in which way? Like
then wouldn't the executor sign and then send it over to the farmer since already farmer has the executor's signature, the public key, they can potentially verify it, like how they verify
the problem is that you might have to access like the state of a prior block. You can access the state of a prior block like within the runtime.
I think the first iteration will just verify that the ER is signed by correct executor, and that's like the same executor all the time. So
you want to hard code this part?
Well, we are hard coding it in the palette. We have just one executor. We don't have like a list of executors, right?
we can just fetch the storage state at that point and then verify it. I mean, I do see what you're saying. Like, what happens if someone changes it right before that extrinsic, a new executor, and then pass it as a ER with the latest signature? We just take it, but I guess that's okay at this point in time.
Yeah, this is not the perfect system, so it's going to change a lot. So all we want to do is just have one hard-coded public key in Palette Executor that the farmer is aware of, and then it just verifies that this ER is signed by that executor, that one trusted executor that we know about.
Okay. It can be done in the first version, so the problem still persists, like the long-term plan.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to have. So that's outside the scope right now of this call to have a long-term discussion on that. That's why we need to have a separate meeting to discuss the long-term plan.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, but I just don't have time today for this.
Okay, so let's move.
That's why I was asking yesterday if this was going to be a 5-minute or a 45-minute discussion. It sounds more like a 45-minute discussion.
Okay. So let's. The third question is the thinking strategy like between the executors. Like currently we have like basically two ways to like proceeding to move the like executor chain. One is to like process each primary block to move forward. One is like you can sync the blocks from other executors. And I have figured out the executor flow node issue I mentioned before, like the story root that then the match like doesn't match. Okay, it's caused like the execute block API used when thinking the blocks like it's not like identical to our like our processing used when we build the initial block. I missed like I missed the pushing story route after executing the execution receipt, so they produce like different
Okay, makes sense.
story route. Okay, so but the problem, okay, still is there. Like how it choose like these like thinking from the other executors and process each like every single primary block is kind of like they have conflicts. Like you have two ways to make the executor chain move forward. Okay, they have conflicts
Why do they have conflicts? They should be exactly the same.
because they happen concurrently and they can have a different velocity to moving forward.
Well,
Based on my experiment.
okay, but if you are talking about the state root at the same block height, it should be the same.
Yeah, it should, but it might have some unnecessary issues we might have to solve. Based on my current experiment, like if you sync the blocks from the other executors, there are some gaps between the latest block and the executor chain block, like we have met before. So we still have to like figure it out, and
Well, the whole idea of the coupled execution is that the execution is fully deterministic from derived from the primary chain. So as long as they can sync the same primary chain, they should derive with the same secondary chain as well.
Yeah, but you have like you basically have two approaches, like produce one like a single result. If you want to maintain like two approaches for one,
What do you mean by two approaches?
Like to like make the executor chain move forward. Currently, you have like if you want to proceed to next block, you can sync this block from other executors, right? You can also process the primary block independently, right?
Okay, yeah.
So you have two. Yeah, so you have two approaches.
Okay, but
for one purpose.
Right. Okay. But if you are syncing it from the network, okay, I see. So you either always produce block yourself, or you sync in from the others.
I mean, if the state for both of them is kind of decoupled, then we can sync from the others to reduce the network.
Yeah, we should be able to sync from others, and it shouldn't change the result. You just need to verify every block that arrives that it is actually like what it's supposed to be.
Maybe have a light client of the parent chain and then get the the bundles from the executor pair along with some parent header. Maybe we can verify them and then start executing those bundles within the executor as a sync. I mean, that's a thought.
Okay, so it seems to me that since you still need to run everything, right?
Yeah.
In order to verify, it doesn't really make sense to sync it from executor because you already have everything necessary on the farmer side, at least for now, because for now we are having the whole bundle in the primary chain. You don't have just the header. So you can just run it. We don't need to like sync in regular sense of the word.
Cool,
Yes,
cool.
you actually don't have to you can just save the cost of thinking the
Yeah.
blocks from other executors. So
Yeah.
why not?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about that because that's going to be the next step is to have this separation between the bundles that the executors produce and the ERs that the
header.
The bundle headers. I think there's a more nuanced discussion around this. I don't think this is blocking us getting it deployed because we're not expecting to have multiple executors on the network, so it's not really a concern for the next release. I think there's a little more subtlety to this discussion here.
Okay, so do I understand correctly that if you run one trusted executor, but someone else wants to verify it, they will not be able to arrive at the same result? Is that correct?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Okay, so if we run trusted executor, but someone else goes to the network and wants to verify that that executor is actually does calculation correctly, will they be able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, then we're good. I think we're good for now.
Okay. Yes, the last one is do we also want trusted transaction pointer production for
Yes.
this? Okay, so we also want this a trusted executor.
Yes, there is just one executor which produces bundles and runs bundles. There is no one else.
Okay, great. Then I think that's the last thing for this initial deployment, the trusted transaction pointer production. Okay.
And
the other
the
things I
validation
believe
of the signature of the execution receipt.
You mean you have said we can just hard code is just signed by Alice, or this hard code exactly?
Well, not Alice, that executor which is in the configuration of the pilot executor.
Yes.
So in the interest of time, how much of this can we hold off to the follow-up meeting? Because it's just Lu Chen that's given this update.
I think we've just went through everything.
For result now.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. I think we have to schedule another call for these questions for more details.
Yeah, can you set something up for Thursday or Friday this week, Lu Chen, with us?
Friday, that is.
Or just before the end of the week.
I think.
Yeah, we don't have to sort it out right now. I'm just saying let's set up a call before the end of the week if you can just offline messages about that.
Earlier is better for me. Okay. Yeah, that's basically okay. There's another one. This one is actually to fix a regression about the execution with the submission from some commits the execution with submission is just broken, and I literally found that the executor code has been significantly signified. We can just remove and work around before, and that will solve the regression naturally.
I'm wondering why we didn't catch it with test. I saw there are some tests for this.
Nope, I didn't test this execution receipts is submit to the primary chain as expected. I didn't test that. I didn't test this case in the test.
Okay.
So that's expected. Yeah, that's everything I have for. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience to Lu Chen? Awesome. Ed, what's on your side?
Hey everyone. All right. Last week spent a couple of is doing some more research into slot duration that we've discussed last week. Basically, how can we change the slot durations without having to have the client upgrade every time on not having to break the system. I did give a bit of information yesterday, but I'll just repeat it. Basically, we cannot propose that particular slot duration chain that we thought of, like listening to a runtime upgrade, fetching the new slot duration, and forcing the client to actually wait until that point before producing the next slot, or at least actually trying to claim a new slot at that point. But that won't be possible through Subspace because their definition of a slot is basically the Unix epoch time in millis divided by slot duration in millis. So they can never change their slot duration. If they do change it, the slot number, which is assumed to be always incrementing in the runtime, will essentially break. So it's going to be impossible for us to convince them to change something which they might not even use. So that's why I started looking at pulling out those specific pieces that we would need that need to be changed out of Substrate and put it in our consensus itself. Shouldn't be too many, just basically the slot worker wrapper that actually runs the execution of slots that period in a very definitive time, depending on the duration and amount of time it took to actually create a new block previously. So it's basically that's the only wrapper that we have to like take out and then adjust so that it is also listening for any kind of slot duration changes between the runtime upgrades and adjust the client accordingly. And the second problem that we have to solve is what is our definition of slots right now, because it cannot be the default definition because our slot duration is expected to increase from like 1,000 milliseconds to like 6,000 milliseconds, for example, at a later period of time through a runtime upgrade. In that sense, if we use a default definition of slot, then we won't always be incrementing, and that will essentially break the runtime. The other approach that I was thinking was uh, instead of doing the current epoch time by slot duration, we come up with a minimum slot duration with a number of milliseconds, and then divide that with current time, and then add the slot duration to the divided one. So basically, we just get a new slot based on the slot duration, but doesn't the value doesn't change if the slot duration changes as well. Like because our minimum slot or like the base slot duration is always going to be a fixed value. Like does that make sense?
Okay. I think what we wanted. Okay, so the idea of the slot is that it's basically a point in time every however many milliseconds where we try to solve a puzzle.
Yeah.
Regardless of how we configure, we just have this like points in time. And
Yes,
if we want to change slot duration, we don't really change the flow of time. We just change the rate of those points that we have. So in the slot worker, they just issue this like call claim slot, like just function call every however many milliseconds. So I think fundamentally we should be able to change the slot duration and just call that function more often. It doesn't need to decrease or increase
the slot number, you're missing the slot number. Every block contains a slot number that is always expected to be incrementing, and that slot number is derived from the time at which.
Then we need to change the notion of slot
Yeah,
duration,
exactly.
slot number somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that they
Wait, what do you mean by slot number?
Okay, so whenever you try to claim
It's a Unix timestamp, right?
No, it's a U64, which is supposed to be incrementing always. Like take a look at like the slot, like it's slot info. You'll have a slot number, and then you'll have a bunch of slot information at that point. And the slot number is ideally calculated from the inherents. First one is timestamp. They get the timestamp that timestamp inherent gives, and the slot duration that that runtime gives, and then divide them. They derive a new slot number for that slot, so that everyone in the runtime can come to the same slot number with the same exact data. Now, since they do the time now by the slot duration, if the slot duration changes, the slot number potentially can go back, which is breaking the fundamental of like always slot number increases irrespective as the time passes. So in order to have minimal impact and still achieve what we want, we just need to redefine the notion of slot number. That
Yeah, we need to have some kind of reset and
exactly
at some point. Okay.
So what I was suggesting was like, instead of dividing the time by the slot duration, define a new variable called the minimum slot duration or some base number that brings the timestamp to seconds, and then add the slot duration in seconds to derive the new slot number. That would always be increasing irrespective, because we don't consider the slot duration when actually deriving the base
Okay,
second
question.
Yeah.
Does that number has to increase? Does it have to increase by 1?
No, definitely not.
Then we can just take slot
Yeah.
time instead of number. It will
Yeah.
always increase.
Yeah, we can just check a slot time and then just like convert it to U64 and then like go for it. It's just going to be a big number, and we might potentially see maybe an overflow down the line. I haven't checked with just the slot time itself. Like I was thinking more of something that actually reduces it by some more number, so that we'll have a bit of time before we come to overflow. But maybe I'm just overthinking about the overflow at this point.
Well, since our blocks are not produced every time slot, it will jump over some numbers. So it shouldn't be a big deal if you just skip.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a
10
big
or
deal.
1,000.
Yeah, as long as the Unix impact, like as long
Yeah.
as the epoch doesn't overflow, so we should be fine. But yeah.
But we still would have to modify the slot worker to have a different
Yeah.
notion of like interval.
Yeah, lucky for us, it's kind of behind the Trit implementation. So we just need to, and the problem with Subspace is that they didn't expose it or they didn't make it customizable enough. It's just a struct implementation of slot queue. So we need to re-implement that, and the slot duration provider that fetches the slot duration between the runtime upgrades as well, and then use that to the slot worker instead of the default one. So then we should be, that's just the initial idea that I have. So then we could start the slot worker as usual, and if everything goes well, the client should ideally update or at least manipulate the slot duration enough between the runtime upgrades if the slot duration changes, and keeping the slots always incrementing.
I'm curious, like how the slot is actually used in our consensus. Does it have to be like updated incrementally?
Yeah, that's
our
next
consensus?
question. The next question, we don't need to, because in our runtime, we didn't see anywhere that we're using the slot number as strictly incrementing, except Substrate does it, because they
Actually, we do rely on it in several places.
Yeah.
We define some of the, I believe we define some of the parameters in the consensus in terms of slot.
Oh yeah, actually
number of slots, not number of blocks.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
our
totally
epochs were defined in number of slots, but we've changed that to C correlation where we have number of blocks, so that's gone. But I believe there is like one more that is still defined in terms of number of slots. But again, that is configurable from the runtime side, so we can change it to like thousands of slots, let's say, not singular slots if we need to.
Yeah, but the thing is, it always needs to be incrementing. I think that's what Liu Shang's question was, no? Or is it?
Can you repeat?
I think, but we still need to make an assumption that the slots are still increasing, right? The slot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think Liu Shang was asking, like, do we even need to have that assumption there? But I guess no.
I'm pretty sure.
I still don't get like in which part like it's necessary. The slot number has to be updated incrementally.
Okay, so there are several things. One is there is the, I believe it's palette timestamp, which includes like an inherent, I believe, in the in every block that tells what time approximate it was built on. So that's like one thing which where it takes part, and the other one is in the pilot subspace we have some of the consensus rules, which are defined in terms of the number of time slots. So like every however many time slots we do this, like we update the
Is
difficult,
that
for instance.
is it possible to switch to another notion? Like
Maybe.
I thought like subspace consensus is like is free from like updating the slot number incrementally.
No, it's very much dependent on time.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can just interject here. So Ved, the original goal here was just to see if it would be easy to do this. And I think the answer is no, it's not going to be easy. This is deeply ingrained into the consensus and to the whole client. And there's honestly even a whole nother layer we're not talking about here of they have this whole paper where they come up with a way to not rely on NTP time, but to use the blockchain as a source of time, which I'm sure is also dependent on this notion of slots being constant. So I think this is going to be a major undertaking, honestly, to revise this. The dependencies here are going to be pretty severe. And it was really just an optimization so that we could get, new releases of testnet out faster. But if it's probably not worth the amount of effort and probably the amount of bugs this is going to generate. I imagine there's going to be a lot of like second and third order effects that we'll only figure out after we deploy it. Like what does it do to the block explorer, for example? So I think that we probably need, my suggestion is ours, we probably just put a stake in this and maybe record this in an issue and add it to like a future task potentially to make this configurable.
Yeah, totally. Like that's the whole reason why I was bringing it here, because I started with some idea like how that works, but the changes are bigger for sure, Jeremiah. But again, I might not agree with the changing the entire the slot change as well, because I think their assumption of slot ID derivation is pretty much generic. But I still do agree with you that it's going to be a big one to take up and worry about, like how
I'm
it
not
will.
even sure it's worth having an issue hanging around forever, basically. It's
Yeah,
unlikely that we will do this,
yeah,
honestly.
Well,
like
I would just like to record the knowledge that we have here somewhere versus just having it like in our heads in case we want to revisit it in the future. Maybe it can be a Notion doc, but
Yeah,
it's
I'll
better
have
if it was in
somewhere.
GitHub
let me
somewhere.
do that. Yeah, let me put whatever we've discussed so far in the Notion doc, and like maybe we can just start.
Don't we have like a section with rejected proposals or something like that?
We do. I didn't say it so far, but maybe I can add it there.
If you don't, we probably should. Like we've discussed this thing. There are these challenges. We decided not to proceed with it because of those.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll add one if there isn't one.
It's been an interesting thought experiment, though. And like I was sat here thinking, wait, don't we use block time? Then it just occurred to me that this is one of those things that we plan to do. Polkadot plans to do later, but it's not yet activated. So yeah, thanks a lot for that, Reg.
Yeah, so yeah, that's my update. I will take in all the discussion that we had so far into a Notion, share it over. Again, I'll make it an archive one or rejected proposal, Nazar. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Awesome. Thanks for this research. Ivan, you're next.
Sure, yeah. Last week I was mainly working on the testing the farmer. So actually, from apart from yesterday, I had some updates from that. So I basically tested on my local HDD, and I always stuck at the middle of the thing. Like I filled the plot at 50% or something. Yeah, and I was banned from the our testnet. Apart from that, I also tested filling the farmer and plots using the Subspace JS, and it also stopped at some time. And the issue, I guess, was with my HDD, with my exact HDD, as I've tested it yesterday and discussed it with Nazar. It seems that the speed of my HDD drops drastically at some point of time. So today, a new 8 terabyte HDD arrived, and I'm currently testing the syncing from our testnet. I hope everything goes well. Yeah. Apart from that, let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Hey, Ivan, can I just ask a question real quick? You said
Sure.
that at some point the speed of your HDD gets slower, that you were able to confirm that?
Yeah. I just talked about that. Yeah. I benchmarked my HDD. Yeah, and my speeds dropped drastically. Yeah, we discussed it with Nazar, and it seems that yeah, it's some technical issue related to that. I guess I wasn't a good user of my HDD. Yeah, a new HDD has arrived to me today. Yeah, the 8 terabyte one. So I'm currently testing it with our testnet. So I guess I can update on that tomorrow. Yeah, if everything goes well.
So these screenshots of benchmarks that Ivan provided, the reads are relatively okay, but writes they start at like 30 megabytes per second, but they then drop to almost 15, which is like 25 on average, and that's sequential. So if you're talking about like random writes in RocksDB, it's probably not great in that case. So
Is that because the hard drive itself does that in normal operation, or is that just while plotting?
that's generic
setting?
benchmarking. That's outside of
Yeah.
our protocol, just generic benchmarking tool. Just
Okay.
goes through the hard drive and shows like the graph of the speed. And
Okay,
the speed is
that-
lower than USB 2 protocol, which is ridiculous.
So I guess the question is that normal for that model hard drive, or is that an anomaly because the hard drive is broken?
I guess it's anomaly. Yeah, but yeah, just I will double check after the meeting. Yeah, but the users of the same hard drive report in the internet.
Yeah, so Ivan was trying to extract smart information from that drive, like self-reporting what it thinks about itself, and that wasn't supported on Linux. Maybe there is like an official utility for Windows. Maybe you can look it up. Maybe there is something to expect the health of the drive.
Okay, yeah,
So-
I will look into that.
Yvonne, have you ever had any issues with your hard drive or your computer before this time?
It's actually a USB hard drive. Yeah, everything's fine with my PC. Yeah, I didn't use my HDD extensively that much. Yeah, but I guess I might hit it like during the transportation or something. Yeah, so this might happen.
Wait, it's a USB hard drive, so it's an external
Yeah.
hard drive,
Yeah, it's an external one. Yeah.
and you're running it on a laptop or a desktop?
No, desktop.
Okay. Did you not have any space available on your primary drive?
No, but I mean, I have one. I have space, but I have only an SSD for my PC, and also SSD on the laptop. So I thought that we could test it on the HDD.
Okay, so you only have an SSD natively. You wanted to test it on an HDD.
Yeah, but actually, I do have HDD right now, and I'm testing plotting on it. Yeah.
Okay. This is just really like, I know I'm being a stickler for this, but this is like really, really important. This is why I'm asking us to test this. Chia destroys hard drives in the plotting process. Like, we haven't tested our hard drive at scale. You know, we have a bunch of assumptions which I'm trying to validate, and I just don't want to, like, the very first time that we try plotting, it's like this hard drive, which has been working fine, all of a sudden, well, the hard drive's broken. Like, okay. Is the hard drive broken? Is there plotting?
Clearly it's not.
Did we break the hard drive, or did like the plotting implementation really slow? Like, we just don't know. Like, I don't want to make any assumptions here. We need to really verify this before we deploy it to 25,000 people on the internet.
Sorry, yeah. I guess I should have been I should have tested it beforehand, like before even trying to plot it. Yeah, but we just compared the benchmarks from a new 8 terabytes HDD and like my USB one, and they differ drastically. Also, Nazar had different like benchmark graph also, which is similar to the new one, new RDD one. So it might be the case that the my old HDD like was broken from the start, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think like writing some data to it will break it. It's not SSD that like is all written many times. Just was writing sequentially, just painfully slow. And with separate benchmarking, we know that it is actually slow. It's not our protocol. It's like genuinely very slow, like unusually slow. So
Okay, but the caveat is it's a USB external hard drive. It's not whatever it is, IDE or SCSI hard drive.
shouldn't matter, ideally. Like we expect people on Raspberry Pis run external USB drives. Should be fine.
It shouldn't. That was our expectation, but in this initial case, it does appear to matter. I guess I'm just I feel like that we have this question over and over. What are the minimum hardware requirements? What kind of drives, should people use? And we're saying it doesn't matter, but maybe it does matter.
Well, it's a broken drive. Then, however you connect it, wherever you connect it, it will be broken. Like if it's slow, it will be slow, no matter what you do with it.
Yeah, maybe someone has like external USB drive. Like I could test it like via SSH or something.
Well, I think after, like, Ivan, after you're able to demonstrate one terabyte plot working on one hard drive correctly, then I think we'll, once you've documented, because I know there was a lot of weird workarounds you had to do to get this, to get this history to the size that you could create the plot. Once we can get one instance of it working, then I think we can work on replicating it across other people's machines on the team. And different types of drives to verify this. I think that would be the critical next step. Well before, going back to the discussion about testing that we were having this morning on another call, like this is something we need to test very, very thoroughly before we release it out to the community.
I have a small update on this same topic. I'm actually syncing from the testnet as well, from test A. It's already 52.5 gigabytes and it's running fine. By fine, I mean it's syncing less than 1 block per second due to block size. Like blocks are just huge in our case comparing to everything out there, Substrate specific, I think, like megabytes in size. But it is running. It's running from like yesterday's evening, and I think it should finish like in 2 days. It's like a quarter of the way. So maybe Ivan will be able to sync from me then. It should be faster. I'm on the NVMe SSD. And you can like do more testing. You can like sync from this to the other disk if necessary, like do a bunch of testing. But it's just very slow on that side. So I'll have a faster source, I guess.
I also started syncing from like 3 or 4 hours ago, and I just hit it like 16 or 17 gigabytes. So I guess I can update on that like next day. I hope everything will go well. Yeah, at least I will have like 70 gigabyte plot or something. Yeah, or even till the like evening on my time zone. I guess same kind of time, the morning in the NA. Yeah, I will have like full plotted, plot which is capped on the max plot size. Yeah. So yeah. Apart from that, I also try to look into the issue related to the Windows syncing. Yeah, I took a look at the like networking in the substrate and libp2p. Yeah, but Nazar discovered that the issue was related to the runtime API calls. So I guess he can elaborate on that later. Yeah. Also, I opened two issues. One of which adding the health check to the Docker Compose setup. Yeah, the issue is that node setup and starting may take a while, and while and the farmer at the same time, it will try to connect to the node and just constantly die while node didn't finish its startup. So for exactly that reason, like Docker has the health check. and we basically can utilize it on our Docker Compose setup. Yeah, and I guess that should work. For that, yeah, it is draft right now, as we didn't want to merge it like right now in order for users to see it. Yeah, as we like our current Docker images are not built with the health check support, so in order not to break like builds of the users, we just have this PR draft. Yeah, hope to merge it. Yeah, it's the yeah, before the next snapshot. Apart from that, yesterday we merged like PR, which was related to the parallelizing opening of the different plots, so we can open them in parallel. Yeah, I basically noticed that opening plots on my hard drive takes a while, and basically I tried to parallelize and look into how it goes, and basically it end up in increasing the performance like it during the opening of the plots. Yeah, it took less amount of time. Yeah, but apart from that,
what was the degree of the change, Ivan?
I think like an order of 2 or something, or even 3. But I tested it on like 6 plots or something. Yeah, I guess I can check it today on like 50 plots on the 8 terabyte hard drive. Yeah. Yeah, I will also.
Are you for that 8 terabyte drive? Are you trying to fill the entire drive 100%?
Yep.
Okay, let's reduce the scope of that to just a 1 terabyte, or even let's just say a 100 gigabyte plot to start, because we haven't. I don't think we've even confirmed that yet. So let's if it's 8 terabytes, that's going to take a really long time to plot. So we're not trying to go all the way yet. That's an eventual goal. Let's start with a more incremental goal that we can test quickly, faster, and debug faster.
I don't think actually that would matter like a lot, as like not syncing is the bottleneck here. Yeah.
But you'll have to write more. Like writing 1 terabyte and 8 terabytes is a difference of 8. So
yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, yeah, I can scope that. Yeah, sure.
I think the last time we've tested a large plot was when we had Spartan. We've tested like 100 gigabytes or 200 gigabytes, I believe. That was the biggest one, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I guess can scope it. Yeah, and update on everything tomorrow. Yeah, apart from that, yeah, I just spent some time looking into the like one issue. I basically like noticed that we could also like improve plotting like in a way that we could batch like archiving segments, so we can basically took into account like several segments at once and batch the piece encoding and piece writing together, and send everything to the farmer. So that basically would speed up the initial plotting speed. As we will like have batch encoding, and after that we will have like and we will batch piece writing to the disk. So
yes, that was the idea initially. The challenge was that we were archiving segments one by one, so we were like doing it one by one, and that was like changing several times already, and it will change one more once we switch to sync from DSN. Once we switch to sync from DSN, we will request big sectors, like with hundreds of pieces or thousands of pieces. Then this batch encoding will actually be the primary way to do initial plot.
Yeah, but I also had a question. Do we do we have an assumption that the segments are supposed to be contiguous or not?
Segments? Which segments?
I mean archive segments which we received from the
They
node.
They are always contiguous, but sectors will not be.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, sectors will be, but they will be in terms of how farmer writes them, not how they're like piece indexed in the history.
But still, we will receive like we will receive pieces, right, from VDSN.
Yes, we will receive a bunch of pieces.
Okay, okay. But that's still a different thing, yeah.
Yeah, but since we are requesting sectors which are supposedly close to what you want, there is a pretty good chance that you will just write everything that you've received. So you'll not have to like reallocate memory, like remove something. You'll be just able to encode everything in a batch on GPU and then just write as one big chunk on disk.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense, yeah. I guess
there's let me sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I can publish the like my like initial view of how yeah how I think what do I think about that, yeah, today. So some draft PR or something, yeah, where could we discuss that?
Yeah, I just, there's a saying, premature optimization is the root of all evil. And right now, this optimizations that you're trying to do, are you doing this based on intuition about just looking at the code and saying like, well, here's a process that I can parallelize? Are you doing this based on some empirical results that you're just kind of seeing as you're plotting, or have you done some sort of profiling where you're doing some sort of statistical analysis of this? Like, where are you getting these ideas for these optimizations?
I actually, yeah, like the farmer is like far behind as I see it right now on the logs from my node. So my node is actually thinking faster than the farmer gets to plot pieces. So I thought that would like speed up the plotting.
But you're not really sure what the cause of the slow plotting is. You just know that it's slower than syncing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess
think that it.
I thought that I could test that. Yeah, after I implemented it. It's not that big deal.
I think there would be a lot more value in profiling and building the tooling for profiling this than there would be in optimizing it when we don't even know what part of, because it's a very, very intense multi-step process that we have here. And we don't really know where the bottleneck is. And also, like as Nazar said, this is going to change significantly once we switch to sync the plot from the DSN. And so I feel I'm worried that you're going to optimize something which we're just going to deprecate or refactor anyways. So I would really caution you against doing any of this kind of optimistic optimization here.
Yeah, that was the primary reason why I didn't like optimize it or like implemented batch. I just like it to do still because we know it will change and then it will make a lot of sense. Right now it's just make it work, not make it super fast.
Okay, yeah. Sure. Okay, I guess like apart from that, I could work on this week. I could work on the like helping Nazar with thinking from the DSN on the farmer side. Yeah, I guess that's all which I had.
Yeah, once you finish this testing, there is already like a plan of what needs to be done specifically, step by step. So
yeah,
just let me know and we'll sync up.
Oh, okay, yeah. I actually looked at it a bit. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts about what Ivan just said? All right. Ozgan, do you have anything to share?
No, I'm focused on desktop app. I'm just following the changes.
Awesome. Let me share my screen if I can find it. I think this one. Okay, you should be able to see it. So last week there are several things in preparation to the software upgrades. So the first thing is to simplify building of the container images and binaries. I've added the chain spec into our code base here, and there is now two. No, not here. It's in the node. And here there are basically two kind of chains that you can select in the binary. There is testnet, which will default to our Bootstrap nodes, our telemetry services by default, all of the stuff that's deployed in the farmnet right now. And there is testnet compiled, which will be compiling the actual like current runtime, which is in the source code, and we'll use that. So like if you want to check what is the current state of this thing, you can use testnet compiled. Otherwise, you can just use this. And this is what we have in the instructions by default. And it will also allow us to remove some of the commands explicitly, like we don't need to specify the telemetry explicitly anymore. We don't need to specify Bootstrap node anymore. It's all embedded. And you don't need to specify flags like in CI to build this with the specific chain spec. And you don't need to download the chain spec. It's just all there already. So this is one preparation. And also there was a problem with building. Make was not available in the container, and it was failing on, I believe, RocksDB wasn't building for some reason. Yeah, so this was the primary change, to remove this feature and make it build by default. Any questions about this? All right. Next one, there was a small fix for ARch64. Basically, the library we are using for ratio coding, it used native compile architecture by default, but that's not actually supported in many compilers. It's not supported in macOS, which was fixed in the library, but apparently it's not supported in many other compilers on ARch64. So we just used our fork, which fixes that, and that was actually approved upstream. So I'll just merge and make release there because I'm there a co-maintainer. So it should theoretically allow to build on ARch64, and we've already seen 2 Linux nodes on our farmnet using that. So apparently someone already built it from source, which is great. Then there was this pull request, which we had to discuss with Jeremiah a little bit, that removes the notion of the commands for identity management, and generally identity management outside of the specific plot, and just requires you to specify the address. Initially, we had just one plot, and we kind of abused that notion to reuse the identity both for plot and for block rewards. But since we were recommending to use reward address explicitly for over a month now, I just decided to just remove all of that code, all of that complexity, and some of the dependencies from the code base to make it simpler to maintain it going forward. Any questions about this?
Just to be clear, so everybody understands, so this means that you can't generate a reward address on the node anymore. You have to do it external. So
on
it's
the
part
farmer.
of the users. Yeah, on the farmer. So you have to basically go into the Polkadot.js extension or have some other wallet, like Substrate-based wallet, generate your mnemonic, generate your keys, and then import the reward address as a startup argument. So it's like a two-step, minimum two-step user experience now on the backend side.
Yeah, we are talking about this wallet address.
Okay. So if we have multiple plots, the same wallet address will be used for all those plots as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like with Ethereum when you are connecting miner to some node, you can like have multiple miners using the same address. Okay. Then I cleaned up node docs a little bit. We had old docs in the node and the farmer, which were actually pointing to some of the container images from way back in the days, like on the Docker Hub. Those were built like in October last year, I think. So I just updated all of that to basically building from source, and added a node to just go to regular farming docs, because that's where we have all of the like setup for regular users. There were some scripts for running local like multi-node setup. Again, it's out of date. And I've also updated code owners to better reflect who should be assigned for reviews by default. Okay. Then there was preparation for the runtime upgrade. I've added CI action for building the runtime. and this is something we'll do today. I also bumped the chain spec so we can actually upgrade it. And there were some other minor things. Yeah, there was actually a problem with WASM build. We are using production profile. However, in cargo, there is a strange design decision where for custom profiles, they're not actually specifying that in the environment variable. So like profile environment variable specified by cargo will still be released because production is inherited from release. And we need to like write a bunch of code to actually identify what the actual profile is that we wanted. That was unexpected, but yeah, had to fix that. And then that was actually problematic. It was problematic because it wasn't specifying the feature for disabling cost of storage, to not enforce cost of storage, which meant when I did the first runtime upgrade to this runtime, then the cost of storage for upgrading the runtime next time, instead of like Pico credits, was like trillions of credits. And there was no way I was able to do the next runtime upgrade ever, unless we have like terabytes of space on the network. And also, I was removing the initial balance for sudo account in the chain spec refactoring pull request, but turns out you still need some coins even on sudo to actually do those like runtime upgrades. So I decided to add 1,000 credits back so we can actually do that, and unified a little bit the properties in terms of like token symbols and number of decimal places on the development network, so that when we are building runtime for the regular one, we can actually have consistent units all over the place. Beyond that, there was a review from SR Labs that made me make changes to the documentation. All of these parameters were not really secure and they shouldn't really be there in the first place, and I had to change a little bit the Docker instructions, and I've also added this dependency. The next step will be to merge Ivan's pull request with actually adds health check, so this has more effect. Otherwise, Farmer just crash loops, which isn't very helpful. And this is actually for the more like later changes where we want to run multiple networks, like we have subspace networking. We want to have multiple networks. The issue is that we require to specify the listen like interface, basically. And there might be a specific port specified there. And if you run multiple instances, it will actually start failing. So like when you run Farmer with DSM support enabled, and you specify some port address, if you run like a second Farmer, it will stop working. So there is a new parameter which allows you to fall back to random ports, just like Substrate does. It just like prints warning that this port is busy. I'll use this one instead. And that's what it does in this case. Support for that is on the Farmer for the RPC server, which is built in, and on the networking for the library in general. That should improve user experience. In some cases, users like wanted to run two Farmers or whatnot for different networks, and just easier to run it this way. This is basically preparation to enabling DSN support in the Farmer, so we can sync from it.
Can we have that as a default fallback instead of passing it as a Boolean value there? Like
the Boolean value is in the library.
Okay, it's not as a command line option. Okay.
No, and it defaults to true to use fallback. And on the Farmer side, it does use fallback both for WebSocket and for this by default. So exactly as you want it. So that's, I think, all about these pull requests. There were several issues that we were investigating. One was slow sync on Windows. I did some tests. It turns out the runtime API call on Windows is, for whatever reason, super, super slow. There were actually some responses in the thread on Substrate. There is even a pull request already that I need to check that supposedly fixes it. The gist of it seems to be, at least the indication, initial indication is that there is a way to, I believe, erase memory after it's used on WASM side. And there is a special instruction used on Linux specifically to make it very fast. But on Windows, it defaults to some much slower version of that. And that specific thing is what takes a lot of time. So there is a pull request to test, which improves that thing. Even if you don't fix that, there is still a way to get around this, is by using native runtime on Windows. If we are building with the same version, it should mostly work. There is like a small chance that it will be non-deterministic, but it should work until we do the next runtime upgrade. So that can be a stopgap to work around this issue in the meantime. But hopefully that fix works and I can just upgrade Substrate and we can get away without workarounds in the long term. So that was one. And what else? Yeah, this thing, I'm running Node locally. I have over 50 gigabytes sync from 200 already. It seems to be running still. I just want to let it finish till the very end and make sure it's fine. If it is, that may be not the amount of data or number of nodes is the problem. Maybe the slow node is the problem, like in Ivan's case where the hard drive was slow. So we can try to like run it in simulated environment where the disk is slow. I don't know, like with virtual machine with bad settings. So it's actually like super slow. And we can like debug when exactly and why this issue is triggered. So it's currently investigation. I hope to have some results about or some news about this next week. But I no longer think it's such a critical problem as we thought, because I am able to sync it. So at least it doesn't affect everyone. And we still will have a lot of archival nodes in like coming weeks until everyone migrates to this new full node setup with upcoming changes. So that's, I guess, a little bit of good news here. Yeah, and I while all of this like is in pending review state, I was also started looking into the refactoring of sync and Substrate. Did a very small step forward, but there is still a lot of work left. So we'll update on that one in detail when I have it. Okay, any questions, comments about any of this? Okay, I think that's about it for the core protocol sync today. Unless anyone has anything to add.
I have a small comment.
Sure.
It's a comment for Ivan. Did you consider that your issue could be connected with a file system for a disk? Because writing for a large file is an unusual case. It probably could be connected to the file system.
I didn't check explicitly that, but I use ext4 on my external hard drive. So yeah, if that helps, yeah.
Okay, just a thing to consider.
I guess I can look into that also, yeah.
All right, I think that's it. Thanks everyone on YouTube for watching, and we'll see you with the next core protocol sync in one more week.